What if I told you that the world is full of paradoxes that seem simple at first, but twist your mind the deeper you think? From time travel puzzles to logical riddles, these paradoxes have challenged philosophers, scientists, and everyday people for centuries. In this video, we're breaking down the most famous paradoxes, each one explained clearly, so you'll never see reality the same way again. Imagine you build a time machine and travel back to stop your grandfather from ever meeting your grandmother. If they never meet, you would never be born, meaning you could never have gone back in time in the first place. This creates the famous grandfather paradox, a loop, where your existence cancels itself out, yet somehow you're still there. Achilles, the fastest runner, agrees to give a tortoise a head start in a race. Every time Achilles reaches the spot where the tortoise has already moved a little further ahead. This creates the illusion that Achilles can never actually pass the tortoise, no matter how fast he runs. Imagine a ship where every single part is slowly replaced with new ones over time. If you rebuild another ship using all the old parts now, there are two ships claiming to be the original. The paradox asks which one is truly the Ship of Theseus, the one with new parts or the one rebuilt from the old. Imagine you have a giant heap of sand sitting in front of you. If you remove just one single grain, it still looks like a heap. So when does it stop being a heap? This is the Sorites paradox, asking where exactly the line is between a heap and not a heap. Imagine a town where the barber shaves everyone who does not shave themselves. But then comes the question, who shaves the barber? If he shaves himself, he breaks the rule, but if he doesn't, the rule says he must be shaved. In a military unit, a pilot can avoid dangerous flights only if he's declared insane. But if he asks not to fly, that proves he's sane, so he has to keep flying. This no-win situation is known as the Catch-22 paradox. The universe is vast and filled with billions of stars, so logically, there should be alien civilizations out there. But despite all this potential, we haven't seen any evidence of extraterrestrial life. This mystery is called the Fermi Paradox. Imagine it's opposite day and I say today is opposite day. If that's true, then it's actually not opposite day. But if it's false, then it really is opposite day. That contradiction is the opposite day paradox. Simpson's paradox happens when a trend appears in separate groups of data. But when those groups are combined, the trend disappears or even reverses. This shows how overall conclusions can be completely opposite to subgroup results. The tolerance paradox says unlimited tolerance can actually destroy tolerance itself. Allowing too much intolerance threatens the survival of a tolerant society. To protect tolerance, a society must refuse to tolerate intolerance. The Bootstrap Paradox asks what happens if something exists without a clear origin. Imagine a time traveler gives Einstein a book with the theory of relativity before he wrote it. Einstein publishes the theory, but who was the original author? The Stockdale paradox is about balancing optimism and realism in hard times. Believing success will come soon can actually lower your chance of surviving. But keeping faith that success will happen one day helps people endure much longer. The Jevons paradox shows that making something more efficient can actually cause more of it to be used. For example, improving fuel efficiency in cars can make people drive even more. So instead of saving resources, efficiency can sometimes increase total consumption. Olbers Paradox asks if the universe is infinite with countless stars. Why is the night sky dark? If stars filled every line of sight, the sky should be bright everywhere. The real explanation is that the universe is expanding, and light from many stars hasn't reached us yet. The paradox of Thrift says that saving money is wise for an individual, but dangerous when everyone does it. If everyone saves too much, people spend less and businesses start to fail. In the end, the whole economy shrinks, making everyone worse off instead of richer. A prisoner is told he will be hanged on a weekday, but the execution must surprise him. He reasons it can't be Friday, then Thursday, and keeps eliminating days until none are left. But when the hanging actually happens, it still shocks him, proving the paradox. Essential things like water are cheap, while non-essentials like diamonds are expensive. This creates a paradox. Why does something we need to survive cost less than something we don't? Economists explain it through scarcity and marginal utility, but it still feels puzzling. If Pinocchio says my nose will grow, it creates a logical dilemma. If it's true, his nose should grow, but then he's lying. If it's false, his nose shouldn't grow, but then he's telling the truth. The more directly one seeks pleasure or happiness, the less likely they are to achieve it. When people chase fun desperately, joy often slips away. Yet when happiness isn't the goal itself, it often arrives unexpectedly. A crocodile steals a child and promises to return it if the parent correctly predicts what it will do. If the parent says, "You won't return my child," the crocodile is trapped in a contradiction. Whether it keeps or breaks the promise, the outcome still violates logic. Imagine a sword sharp enough to cut through any shield. Now imagine a shield strong enough to block any sword. What happens when the unstoppable blade meets the unbreakable shield? Imagine walking toward a destination, but first you must walk halfway there. Before that, you must walk a quarter of the way, then an eighth, and so on. With infinite steps to take, it seems you can never actually arrive. Though it seems an arrow in motion is constantly changing its position at any instant, it can only be where it is. If the arrow is only ever at rest in each instant, how can it actually move? This paradox suggests the arrow is stationary the entire time. Imagine an infinitely big hotel with infinitely many rooms, and every single one is already occupied. Yet by moving each guest from their room to the next one, the hotel can still make space for new arrivals. This paradox shows that infinity can be both full and never full at the same time. Imagine a card that says on one side, "The sentence on the other side of this card is true." On the back it says, "The sentence on the other side of this card is false." Together, the two sides create an endless logical loop with no resolution. Imagine someone saying, "I am lying." If the liar is telling the truth, then he's lying. But if he is lying, then he is telling the truth. When a single grain of millet falls, it makes no sound. But when 1,000 grains fall together, they make a loud sound. How can many nothings suddenly become something? It might be more likely for a single brain to spontaneously form in a void. This brain would come complete with false memories of having lived in a universe. So which is more probable? A whole universe forming or just one lonely brain imagining it all? Increasing the food available to an ecosystem may seem like a good idea at first, but too much enrichment can make the system unstable and even lead to extinction. Fixing a problem with a defective product can sometimes make customers happier than if nothing had gone wrong. The successful recovery builds more trust and satisfaction than a flawless experience. When two countries both have nuclear weapons, the chance of direct war drops sharply. But at the same time, the chance of smaller indirect conflicts actually increases. When you try to suppress a thought, it often makes that thought even more persistent. The harder you push it away, the stronger it comes back into your mind. The paradox of choice says that too many options can actually make people anxious instead of happy. With endless possibilities, deciding becomes overwhelming and satisfaction drops. The birthday paradox shows that in a group of just 23 people, the odds of two sharing a birthday are already over 50%. It feels counterintuitive because our brains expect the number to be much higher. Schrödinger's cat is a thought experiment where a cat in a box can be both alive and dead until observed. It illustrates the strange nature of quantum mechanics and how reality changes when it's measured. The twin paradox says that if one twin travels through space at near the speed of light, they will age slower than the twin who stays on Earth. When they reunite, the traveling twin is younger, showing how time itself changes depending on speed. The friendship paradox says that on average, your friends tend to have more friends than you do. This happens because highly social people are more likely to show up in your friend circle. The raven paradox says that finding a black raven supports the claim that all ravens are black. But strangely, finding something that is not a raven and not black like a green apple also supports the claim. The temperature paradox asks if the temperature is 90 degrees and rising, is 90 itself rising? This creates confusion because the number seems fixed, yet the condition around it keeps changing. The interesting number paradox says there cannot be a smallest uninteresting number, because the very first uninteresting number becomes interesting simply for being the first one. So by this logic, every number ends up being interesting in some way. The irresistible force paradox asks what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. If the force cannot be stopped and the object cannot be moved, the situation creates a logical contradiction. Philosophers use it to show the limits of language and logic when describing extremes. The lottery paradox says it's reasonable to believe any single lottery ticket will lose. But it's not reasonable to believe that all tickets will lose because one must win. This paradox highlights the gap between what seems rational individually and what is true collectively. The preparedness paradox shows that the more we prepare for a catastrophe, the less serious it looks afterward. Because when damage is reduced, people believe the threat was exaggerated in the first place. This creates a cycle where good preparation can be seen as unnecessary, even though it prevented disaster. From time travel dilemmas to infinite hotels paradoxes reveal the strange twists hidden in logic and reality. They challenge our thinking and show that even simple questions can lead to mind-bending puzzles. If you enjoyed exploring these paradoxes, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more fascinating explanations.